Shedeur Sanders admitted he might not even be with the Cleveland Browns next year. He was honest on this. He answered this question very, very honest and said, look, I don't even know if I'm be here next year. There's a lot of sabotage going on, all types of stuff. You know what I mean? So let's get into what Shedeur
You
Sanders
have to
said.
focus on the next opponent. So, like you could look at past notes and things. That's okay, but I think having a fresh set of eyes is
The situation unfolding around Shedeur Sanders feels heavier than a normal end-of-season conversation. What surfaced wasn't frustration dressed up as optimism or standard athlete caution. It was something more revealing, something that quietly pulled the curtain back on uncertainty, power dynamics, and a future that doesn't appear settled at all.
Talking about Dylan was more professional, he was more ready, he was more NFL ready, all this shit. What is so sad, bro, is how much racism kept this man from playing snaps. I hope he get traded from Cleveland. I hope he requests a fucking trade at the end of the season, bro, after he'd improved all his worth. I pray to God the Lions get Shedeur Sanders, bro, because you want to know why the Browns do not deserve him. They're a racist, poverty-ass franchise that let old grandfathered in NFL good old boy rules.
When a quarterback in that position speaks the way he did, it forces everyone paying attention to stop and reassess what they think they know about stability, commitment, and direction inside the Cleveland Browns organization.
Nothing's even promised for next year. Do you still not feel a commitment from the Browns about next year and you being the starter?
Nah, I don't think it's about feeling a commitment. I don't think it's about anything of that. It's about controlling what you can control as a person, as a player. I think I have to do my part. I think I have to do my part and, get some wins. I think I have to do my part and play clean football. And
this wasn't about looking ahead with excitement. It wasn't about projecting growth or talking up next season as a clean slate. What came through was an acknowledgement that nothing is guaranteed, that being present is not a motivational slogan, but a necessity, and that even wearing the uniform today doesn't mean you'll be wearing it tomorrow. That kind of mindset doesn't come from comfort. It comes from awareness.
Continue. Now, y'all know all week long we've been tracking here on the channel these offensive linemen doing weird and spooky things in the Shedeur Sanders department. One being not blocking, two being look like they want to sack Shedeur. Now, with all of that being said, bro, people been breaking down Shedeur film, and in the process of them breaking down the damn film, we're noticing different things, like I said last video, with the offensive lineman. Now,
the most striking part is how calmly that awareness was expressed. There was no panic, no emotional spillover, no dramatic tone, just a measured understanding that circumstances shift quickly in the league, and that control is limited, no matter how much work you put in.
It's simple. Everybody who was complicit in Shedeur Sanders not playing NFL football until the 13th week of the season needs to be fired. Needs to be fired immediately. 11 for 20, 209 yards, touchdown, interception. Could have had 2 to 3 touchdowns more. Could have had 300 yards, 3-something touchdowns if Jerry Jeudy didn't do what he did and he didn't have other drops. So
when a player at that stage talks like that, it signals that conversations are happening behind closed doors, that the air isn't as clear as fans might assume, and that trust is being tested in more ways than one. What's happening here isn't just about wins and losses, it's about the environment. It's about whether development is supported consistently or complicated by forces that don't show up on the stat sheet. There's a difference between internal competition and external interference. And when a player hints at obstacles beyond performance, it changes the entire framing of the season. Every week, being treated as a reset sounds like coach speak until you realize why it's being emphasized. When there's no assurance of continuity, the present becomes the only safe place to stand. Preparation shifts from long-term building to immediate survival. That doesn't mean growth stops, but it does mean the margin for error disappears. Every rep matters more. Every decision carries extra weight. Against defenses like Pittsburgh, physicality becomes more than a matchup note. It becomes a test of resilience. Facing units that swarm, hit, and pressure relentlessly forces a quarterback to either trust what he sees or hesitate just long enough for everything to collapse. That trust isn't automatic. It's earned through repetition, failure, correction, and the confidence to step into chaos without flinching.
You mean to tell me it's possible that Shedeur actually had the wrong plays on his wristband? You know, you mean to tell me it's possible the plays on Shedeur's wristband wasn't matching the calls from the offensive coordinator? Is that possible? Tell me, why is it that crazy things only happen to Shedeur Sanders? The game started off like things were about to go bad for Cleveland. From the first possession of the game, Cleveland starts on their 1 yard line. Then on the next series, Shedeur was trying to beat the delay of game clock, but didn't get.
Footwork and pocket presence aren't just mechanical upgrades, they're psychological markers. Stepping up instead of drifting back means believing that protection will hold, believing that timing will align, believing that your read is right even when the rush is closing in. That belief doesn't come from words of encouragement. It comes from shared accountability. When that accountability feels uneven, trust becomes harder to maintain. There's been visible growth in that area, and it's not accidental. It's the result of deliberate focus on preparation, film study, and learning how to process speed without rushing decisions. But even that growth exists alongside uncertainty. Development can happen in unstable environments, but it always costs more. The toll isn't just physical, it's mental. Being part of a rookie class that's closely bonded adds another layer. Watching teammates get recognition, even partial acknowledgement like alternate honors, reinforces the sense that the group is moving in the right direction. But it also sharpens the understanding that recognition is temporary and incomplete. The goal isn't to be mentioned, it's undeniable. Anything short of that leaves room for doubt, for debate, for replacement.
You know, quarterbacks wear wristbands with the play calls.
Ain't no way they gave him the wrong wristband.
They're saying they gave him the wrong wristband on the sideline.
So after the first few drives, either some of the plays on the wristband was wrong or the whole wristband was wrong, but it was not the right wristband. My whole thing is being in the building, know how that go. Y'all on offense.
Ain't no way hell that happened.
I'm on defense, and I know how this go. Friday, Saturday, they finishing up the play sheet, and then on Saturday, they gonna give it to y'all, but they make it.
Ain't no way they had the wrong.
The only
call.
mistakes on that are you mistype, you leave out, you leave something out, you spell something.
Injuries, surgeries, and setbacks are reminders of how fragile momentum is. 1 week changes everything. One decision alters trajectories. In that context, celebrating future potential feels premature. The focus narrows. Execution today becomes the only currency that matters. Trust from a head coach in critical moments carries weight, especially in late-game situations. Fourth downs aren't just play calls, they're statements. One strong drive doesn't erase previous mistakes, but it can shift perception. Still, perception in the NFL is fluid. What you did last week buys you nothing if you don't repeat it. The idea that this season represents the lowest point isn't a declaration of future dominance. It's a recognition of the grind. Improvement isn't guaranteed just because time passes. It requires alignment between player effort and organizational direction. When those two drift apart, even progress can feel temporary. Living in the present isn't avoidance. It's a strategy. Looking too far ahead assumes stability that may not exist. When nothing is promised, projecting next year becomes an unnecessary distraction. The only way to secure tomorrow is by handling today with precision.
I think it's best for Shedeur to get the hell out of here. I would want the hell out of here so fast your head would spin. And I would have a conversation at the end of the year and say, I need to go somewhere where people are going to give me a chance to develop, where they believe in me and they put the things around me that make me good.
What planet are we living on here? What planet are we living on that we just can't come to an agreement here that, yes, he's a very popular developmental quarterback and he may get the chance to start in 2026? Is that so effing hard?
That mindset doesn't come from fear. It comes from clarity. Understanding that roster spots, starting roles, and long-term plans are influenced by factors beyond individual control forces, a recalibration of expectations. Ownership, management, coaching philosophy, and external narratives all play roles that players can't dictate. Improvement from early struggles against elite defenses to more controlled late-game execution tells a story of adaptation. It means understanding that comfort rarely produces growth. Being tested by top-tier defenses forces adjustments that film sessions alone can't teach. Feeling comfortable again late in games isn't a coincidence. It's the product of settling into rhythm, trusting instincts, and letting preparation override hesitation. That feeling is fragile, though. It depends on repetition and reinforcement. Disruptions, whether schematic or organizational, threaten that balance. When comparisons to other quarterbacks come up, especially those in different situations, the contrast becomes clear. Some environments provide clear commitments and defined futures. Others operate in gray areas. Acknowledging that difference without resentment shows maturity, but it doesn't erase the reality of it.
Man, look, I don't know where to start, but let's talk about it. So I've been tagged in probably about 20 to 25 videos regarding Shedeur and the Cleveland Browns. From What She Said Sports saying that the tight end purposely stepped on Shedeur's pinky and ripped his nail off, to people tagging me about the offensive line play. And let me just say this. The offensive line is terrible. Terrible. But I also know they're not going to pick up another lineman.
Not feeling a guaranteed commitment isn't framed as a slight. It's framed as reality. Control is limited to performance and preparation. Wins matter. Clean execution matters. Everything else is out of the player's hands. That understanding strips away illusions about power and forces a focus on responsibility. There's no attempt to predict outcomes or demand assurances. There's an acceptance that decisions will be made regardless, influenced by factors unseen and sometimes unexplained. That acceptance doesn't mean passivity. It means choosing where to invest energy. The rivalry aspect, especially games against teams like Pittsburgh, adds emotional weight for fans. But for a quarterback trying to establish himself, every opponent presents the same challenge. Preparation, execution, and adaptability don't change based on history. Motivation is internal, not inherited. Winning any game carries significance, but it doesn't redefine the larger picture on its own. Consistency does. How you approach each matchup reflects how you view your role and responsibilities. Treating every game with the same seriousness avoids emotional spikes that can derail focus. All of this circles back to the original shock. The idea that a young quarterback could already be contemplating a future away from Cleveland isn't wild because it's dramatic. It's wild because it's plausible. It fits within the patterns of the league. It aligns with the cautious language used. It matches the emphasis on uncertainty.
The quarterback and the head coach and the offensive coordinator is like this.
Yeah.
Like no way you should have walked out there on that field with the wrong wristband. Ain't nothing you can tell me the Brown organization can say to tell me that y'all allowed this man to walk out with the wrong wristband. The person that leading your team out there on the field walk out there with the wrong wristband on.
Nothing about this feels performative. It feels calculated, careful, and grounded in experience gained faster than expected. When a player talks less about guarantees and more about preparation, it's usually because guarantees aren't being offered. Whether this leads to a move or a renewed commitment remains open. What's clear is that the ground beneath this situation isn't solid. It's shifting, influenced by performance, politics, and perception. Navigating that requires more than talent. It requires awareness and restraint. The next stretch of games won't just be evaluated for wins. It suggests an understanding that careers are shaped as much by timing and circumstance as by ability. For Cleveland, this should prompt reflection. Development doesn't happen in isolation. Stability matters. Communication matters. When players start speaking in terms of the present only, it's a signal that the future hasn't been clearly defined. For Shedeur Sanders, the path forward remains unwritten. What's evident is a refusal to cling to assumptions. There's a commitment to doing the work, learning from failure, and staying grounded regardless of what comes next. That's not a dramatic exit announcement. It's something more unsettling. It's a calm acknowledgement that the door is open and that nothing is promised on the other side. That openness changes how every decision from here on out is interpreted. Every rotation at practice, every shift in play calling, every public comment from the organization will be viewed through a different lens.
They will let you know.
They get paid way too much to get that man the wrong wristband. I don't believe that.
So Shedeur said that the wristband fell out. And
he's such a good kid. He's gonna have it back, bro.
Exactly. Because he's not going to throw nobody under the bus. Never. You see the situation and being in the building, a part of those situations like that, seeing this happen, bro, like I said, it's every week since he's been the quarterback starting for that team. It's something new, a new situation that we've never seen before.
Not from his side, from the coach's side.
That we've never seen before.
Once uncertainty is acknowledged publicly, even subtly, it becomes impossible to pretend everything is settled behind the scenes. The silence between statements starts to speak louder than official reassurances. What makes this even more layered is the timing. This isn't an off-season rumor cycle or a post-contract negotiation haze. This is happening while games are still being played, while evaluation is ongoing, while the product on the field is still being shaped. Quarterbacks are usually insulated from this kind of ambiguity early on. Organizations prefer to project confidence, even when internal debates exist. When that projection cracks, It suggests that alignment hasn't fully formed. Alignment between coaching vision, front office strategy, and player development is fragile, and once strained, it requires deliberate effort to restore. There's also the reality of narrative momentum. Once a storyline like this gains traction, it becomes self-sustaining. Media questions shift, fan discussions sharpen. Every incomplete pass gets tied back to stability. Every strong drive sparks debate about whether it's enough to secure a future. That environment can either forge resilience or accelerate separation.
They're just going to rock with who they have. The tight end stepping on his pinky, I mean, that's a long shot to me, but, it is what it is. And I know a lot of y'all just hate Shedeur. Y'all hate him because of his name. Y'all hate him because he smiles too much. Y'all hate because he gives the correct answers. Like, y'all just dislike him. Another portion of y'all just wants to talk about the negative.
What stands out is the refusal to lean into victimhood. There's no framing of unfairness, no appeal to sympathy. Instead, there's an emphasis on responsibility and control. That doesn't erase the possibility of frustration, but it does redirect it inward toward preparation and execution. That mindset is often the difference between players who survive transitions and those who get lost in them. From an organizational standpoint, this creates a crossroads. Continuing to evaluate while maintaining ambiguity may protect flexibility, but it risks eroding trust. Trust isn't just about believing in ability, it's about believing in intent. Players want to know whether development is a shared goal or a temporary experiment. When that question lingers, commitment becomes conditional on both sides. Either way, this moment marks a shift. The conversation is no longer just about development within Cleveland. It's about agency, timing, and readiness for whatever comes next. That's what makes it so compelling. Not the shock value, but the implications. In a league built on certainty projections that rarely hold, acknowledging uncertainty might be the most honest position possible. And honesty, while unsettling, often precedes decisive change.